I was going to provide some hot takes on some things that I've been writing down, things that I've had thoughts about. Absolutely not. Okay. So, Bridgerton. I watched the latest season of Bridgerton. I liked it at the beginning that I was like, okay. I mean, I've watched all of the seasons. It is entertaining. I'll say that and compelling, a lot of compelling storylines. But it's overtly classist. I do think the Queen's wigs are the best part of the show. I don't like though that it is a colonial empire like in the Queen Charlotte like side show that they had. She mentions like sapphires from India, so I'm like, "Oh, so you're like colonizers." Okay. Um and so it's kind of this like interesting portrayal of identity politics and class. I liked in the latest season that they were working towards getting her acceptance, like the love interest who was a maid, that she would be accepted and it would be allowed for like this Bridgerton son, this upper class guy, to marry her, getting the blessing of the queen. And then in the end, they just like pretend that she was noble. And I'm like, so what was all that about? What happened to like class solidarity? I guess there's class solidarity among them, but there were people that were like trying to fight for her acceptance who did come from the lower classes. So I was like, oh, that's cool, solidarity. But then it ended up like being for naught because she pretended to be of noble birth anyway. So that's my take. Peaky Blinders. I watched the movie recently that came out with it has like a different ending because I think a lot of people were upset about the ending and they're like, "Oh, we need to make a movie because people are mad." And it's interesting because on one hand, like they claim that they're Romani, but they're all white. So I have a problem with that because like one of the reasons Romani people are marginalized like historically throughout time is because of these racialized constructs that they impose on people. There's something called like Irish travelers where they are nomadic and they could also be discriminated against. And so it seems like it's this blending of Irish travelers who are white and Romani people who are not, who are from the not continent. Oh my God. You can tell it's a Monday. From India. They're part of the Indian diaspora. And so I'm like, then why do we have all of these white people who are playing Romani people? Why couldn't they cast Romani people? That would make the show way more interesting to me instead of them like pretending to be Romani. That would add a lot of visibility and representation, but also like talking about the constructs of race during this time when Peaky Blinders takes place. I think that could just elevate the art. So I don't like that they had all of these white people. But yeah, like a lot of the traditional activities that they show them do or that they engage in are more common among like the Desi diaspora. And so it's like, okay, you want to lift these things from Romani culture, continue to invisibilize people who have like historically been invisibilized and erased from historical texts, who've been genocided, who have been subject to chattel slavery, and you get to take their stories and then put white people there. I have a problem with that. Uh, oh, this is something that I have thought for a while, but with AI, how they like use the sparkle emoji to show if something's going to be AI or not. And I don't like that because I liked the sparkle emoji. I would do it a lot of like, oh, hi. And now I don't want to use it as much because now I associate it with AI. Okay, erotica apps. I will indulge in these sometimes. I like erotica, um, particularly if it is well written because I'm a snob and I like want the story to make sense. But it seems to me now there is even more of an oversaturation of a lot of very dominant, aggressive, hetero cis relationships that are portrayed in these stories. And there isn't any sort of like disclaimer about consent or like education about what consent means. And I think all of these apps like need some sort of tutorial at the beginning or something like that, or the authors need to include something that's like, okay, this is showing like some like a romanticization of certain like kink or fetishes, and that this is not indicative of like what people should always be doing in their lives when they're not getting consent for, especially when it is harming other people. And there is very little content about female doms showing like female domination because guess what? I've looked, and that is very concerning to me, especially as like there are so many ads for these apps, like along with like games and stuff, that it worries me, especially for like young people growing up, that there already is so much cis het propaganda that exists in the world. But then when we have these stories where people are like learning about sexuality, that most of the portrayals are not showing like overt ways to get consent. And I have a problem with that. Not to say that like people can't write stories where that isn't a thing, but I just feel like there needs to be like the education piece first. And like that doesn't necessarily have to be a burden on the authors all the time. I think that's like a responsible thing to do if you're an artist and a writer and you want to make sure that like people are not employing these kinds of like tactics and behavior in their own lives. But like the apps for sure, I think should have like this education or something about consent, because there are some stories where that I've read where it is just like outright abuse. It's not even like enjoyable for like the main character, and there's a lot of romanticizing like cruelty. It's like I love kink, I love BDSM, like when you can do this in a consensual manner, cool, love that. But I do worry about its impact on young people, especially in this fascist moment when we have things like trad wives and a lot of strict gender roles that are being imposed and are coming back, especially with like lack of access to reproductive health care. There is a lot, like speaking of like the breeding concept, that is becoming much more of a pronounced thing in mainstream culture, which it's always been part of kink, but to have it be like common knowledge without the like explanation of like, oh, this is a fetish or this is a kink, that I worry that it's like girls, especially people with uteruses, grow up a lot of the time feeling like that's the only thing society values you for, especially in these fascist moments where it is very clear that's what they think about people with uteruses, that like you need to be a baby factory and not have any sort of autonomy. So I want to acknowledge the nuance there, where like we can indulge in these stories that engage in like BDSM, because that's fun. I love that. But also like making sure that there is education available somehow, I think is also important. Yeah. I was thinking I would be more eloquent with all of those points, but there you go. Those are my recent hot takes.